What would you do if a 9-year-old kid in duct-taped boots claimed he could heal your child? And he was right. It was cold that morning in Birmingham, Alabama. Not cold enough to snow, but just enough to make your breath visible and your fingertips sting. People hurried in and out of the Children's Medical Center on 7th Avenue, bundled in scarves, clutching coffee, moving quickly like they could outrun whatever pain brought them there. But one person wasn't moving. He sat on a flattened cardboard box near the revolving doors, drawing quietly in a weather-beaten notebook. His name was Ezekiel, Zeke Carter, just 9 years old. His coat was too big, sleeves rolled up, and one of his boots had duct tape stretched across the toe. A red knit beanie sat low on his forehead, barely covering his ears. He didn't beg, didn't ask for anything, just sat there watching, always watching. Some of the hospital staff had tried to chase him off at first, but eventually they gave up. He didn't cause trouble. He smiled when spoken to. When he wasn't sketching, he was paying attention to everything. Most folks figured he had a parent inside, maybe a sick sibling. Maybe he was waiting on a ride. No one asked too many questions in a place like that. Across the street, parked by a fire hydrant, a dark silver Range Rover idled, engine on, driver still. Inside sat Jonathan Reeves, late 40s, sharp jawline, graying at the temples. His tie was loose, collar wrinkled. He had money, you could tell, by the gleam of the car even under the dull hospital lights. But he looked like a man running on empty. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter Issa sat quietly in her booster seat. Her curls were tucked behind one ear, legs under a pink blanket. Her eyes were wide and still. She hadn't spoken much since the accident. One moment she was climbing trees and racing her cousins. The next, paralyzed from the waist down. Jonathan opened the back door and lifted her gently in his arms. He walked toward the hospital entrance, not noticing Zeke sitting nearby. Most people didn't. But Zeke noticed him. He saw the way Jonathan cradled her, like she might break. Saw how Issa's eyes avoided the hospital and locked onto the sky instead. Zeke stared longer than usual. Then, just before they passed, he stood up. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Jonathan stopped mid-step, not because he was confused or angry, but because of how the words were said. Soft, clear, serious. No hint of sarcasm or scam, just conviction. "What did you just say?" Jonathan asked. Zeke stepped forward, notebook under his arm. "I said I can help her walk again." Jonathan's grip on Issa tightened. "That's not funny, kid." "I wasn't joking." The boy's voice didn't tremble. No grin. Just a strange stillness, like he believed it in his bones. Jonathan looked at the kid's worn-out clothes, the duct tape, the cracked glasses hanging from his collar. This had to be a scam, or something weirder. He turned away and walked inside. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. The voice, the way it was said, not like a guess, but like a truth. Throughout the appointments, as therapists and neurologists used careful phrases, managing expectations, long road ahead, miracles take time, Jonathan kept hearing Zeke's voice echoing, "I can make your daughter walk again." By early afternoon, Jonathan and Issa stepped back into the cold. Sunlight peeked through the clouds, but the air still bit. As they walked to the car, Jonathan noticed Zeke again, sitting on the same box, same notebook, eyes locked on him like he'd been waiting. Jonathan hesitated. He looked at Issa. Her eyes were closed, her head resting on his shoulder, her small body too light for a child her age. He turned and walked over. "You again," he muttered. "Why would you say something like that? You think this is funny?" Zeke shook his head. "No, sir." "You don't even know her," Jonathan said, carefully lowering Issa into the back seat. "You don't know what she's been through, what we've been through." I don't have to know her to help. Jonathan straightened. You're what, 9? Almost 10. Exactly. You're a little boy sitting outside a hospital with duct tape on your shoes. What could you possibly know about helping someone like my daughter? Zeke looked down, fingers tracing the notebook's edge. My mama used to help people walk again. She was a physical therapist, taught me things, said the body remembers, even when it forgets for a while. Jonathan crossed his arms, skeptical. So what? You watched her do some stretches and now you think you're a doctor? I watched her help a man walk after 5 years in a chair. She didn't have machines or nurses, just her hands, her patience, and her faith. Jonathan opened his mouth, then stopped. A nurse walked past and gave Zeke a small wave. A janitor from inside nodded at him. They knew him. I'm not giving you money, Jonathan said. I didn't ask for money. Then what do you want? Zeke took a breath. Just 1 hour. Let me show you. Jonathan looked back at Issa, who had opened her eyes and was watching silently. He sighed, rubbed his eyes. I should walk away right now. Zeke didn't move. I should call security. Still no reaction. Jonathan finally muttered, Fine. You want to waste your time? Meet us at Harrington Park. Tomorrow, noon. Don't be late. I'll be there. Jonathan got into the SUV, started it up, and drove off. In the mirror, he saw Zeke still standing there, hands at his sides, expression unreadable. That night, after dinner, Jonathan sat in his office, surrounded by paperwork that made no sense. He kept thinking about Zeke, how he stood there, like he knew something. Issa peeked into the room. Daddy? He turned. Yeah, baby? Who was that boy? Just someone we met at the hospital. He looked like he believed it. Believed what? That I could walk. Jonathan stared. Her lips parted slightly in a soft smile. She tapped her fingers across her wheelchair's armrest like they were walking legs. He didn't smile back. Because for the first time, in a long time, he didn't feel numb. He felt something worse. He felt hope. Harrington Park wasn't much. A cracked basketball court, a rusty swing set, and a patchy field pretending to be a soccer pitch. On Sundays around noon, it was usually empty. But that day, Zeke was already there, sitting on a bench beneath a big oak. Same coat, but his notebook was packed away. A small gym bag sat at his feet, a folded towel on the bench. At 12:07, Jonathan's SUV pulled up. He got out, lifted Issa, and rolled her towards Zeke without a word. His arms were folded tight across his chest. Hi again, Zeke said, polite as ever. Jonathan gave a short nod. Issa waved shyly. Zeke smiled. Hi, Issa. Her eyes brightened. Hi. Jonathan frowned. How do you know her name? You said it yesterday. I remember stuff. Jonathan just gestured to the towel. So what now? Magic carpet ride? No, sir. Just the basics. Zeke opened his bag. Inside, a pair of socks, a tennis ball, a jar of cocoa butter, and a container wrapped in cloth. Warm rice inside. Jonathan squinted. What is all that? Stuff my mom used. The rice is for heat, helps loosen tight muscles. The ball's for pressure points. Zeke turned to Issa. If it's okay, can I work with your legs? Nothing will hurt. If it feels weird, just say stop. Issa looked to her dad. He exhaled. You can try. Just be careful. Zeke knelt beside the chair, unwrapped the blanket from her legs, and placed the warm rice packs over her thighs. Issa flinched. Too hot? She shook her head. Feels good. Zeke nodded. He waited a moment, then gently began moving her legs, not forcing, just slow, small rotations. Side to side, up and down, Jonathan watched closely, ready to jump in if something went wrong, but nothing did. You ever do this before? He asked, suspicious. Zeke didn't look up. My mama used to take me to shelters after school. She helped veterans, folks who couldn't afford therapy, said, "Everybody deserves to feel human again. I used to carry her bag." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "And she taught you this stuff?" "Yeah, said the body don't always need fancy, just attention." He tapped lightly on Isla's knee with his knuckle. "You feel that?" "No," she whispered. Zeke nodded, unfazed. "That's okay. I'll keep asking." He kept talking to her while working, asking about her favorite colors, favorite food, what shows she liked to watch. At first her answers were short, but then she started asking him questions. "Do you live around here?" "Kind of." "Do you go to school?" "I used to." "Why not anymore?" Zeke hesitated. "My mom got sick, then she passed. Been trying to figure things out since." Isla looked down. "I'm sorry." Zeke gave her a small smile. "Thanks." Jonathan's posture softened slightly, but he didn't speak. After about 30 minutes, Zeke gently tapped her ankle again. "You feel that?" Isla blinked. A little, like pressure. Zeke looked up at Jonathan. "That's good." Jonathan squinted. "She sometimes says that during her regular sessions." "Yeah," Zeke replied. "But those sessions are inside a room full of machines. Sometimes kids get scared of machines. They tighten up. But here," he gestured to the open park. "There's air, trees, feels different." Jonathan didn't say anything, but he was definitely listening now. Zeke helped Isla stretch both legs, then gave her some simple toe movements to try. Just wiggling. She tried. Nothing obvious happened. But she didn't look discouraged. "I'll show you again next week," Zeke said, standing up. "It takes time, but your muscles—" He pointed to her thighs. "They still remember how to be used. You just got to remind them." Isla smiled. Bigger this time. "Okay." Jonathan cleared his throat. "We're not promising anything," he said quickly. Zeke nodded. "I'm not either. I'm just trying." Jonathan stared at him for a long second. Then, without warning, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded bill, and held it out. Zeke stepped back. "No, sir. I don't want your money." Jonathan looked surprised. "Then why are you doing this?" Zeke shrugged. "Because—" Your daughter smiled. Jonathan looked down at Isla. She was still smiling. But he didn't understand how a boy who had lost everything could give so much to a girl he barely knew. The following Sunday was warmer, but Zeke still wore his jacket, not because he needed it, but because it made him feel like his mom was close. She used to call it his helper's coat. Said every good healer needed something that reminded them why they care. He was already at Harrington Park by 11:45, towel laid out. Supplies lined up, bottle of water sitting beside him. A few kids played basketball nearby. Someone's dog barked in the distance. At exactly noon, Jonathan's SUV rolled up. Isla was grinning before the car even stopped. Zeke waved. "Hi, Isa." "Hi," she chirped, curls bouncing as Jonathan helped her into the wheelchair. Jonathan looked tired again, but different this time. Less weighed down. He gave Zeke a small nod. No words, but it was more than last week. Zeke got to work. Same setup, same warm cloth pack. But this time, something had shifted. Isla was trying now. "Can you press your heel into the ground?" Zeke asked gently. She closed her eyes, concentrating. Nothing happened. "It's okay," he said. "Sometimes it takes your brain a while to find the right path. It's like trying to walk through a crowd. You just got to push through." Jonathan stood behind them, arms crossed again, but this time more to keep warm than to wall himself off. "Why do you do all this?" he asked suddenly. Zeke glanced up. "Because I remember what it felt like when my mom used to help people. She made them feel like they mattered. I want to do that too." Jonathan nodded slowly. "You ever think About doing something else? Sometimes, Zeke said, but this feels right. Jonathan looked at Isla. She was tapping her toes. Barely, but they moved. For the first time. He didn't speak. He just watched. The next few weekends they kept coming. Same time, same place. Zeke taught Isla how to use rubber bands to strengthen her ankles, rolled tennis balls under her feet to help her brain remember where they were, showed Jonathan how to massage pressure points behind her knees, and explained how each nerve had a job, even when it went quiet. And then came the bad day. It was the fourth Sunday. Zeke showed up like always. But when the SUV pulled up, Isla wasn't smiling. Her eyes were red. Jonathan looked angry. "She doesn't want to do it today," he said sharply as he lifted her into the chair. Isla refused to look at either of them. Zeke approached slowly. "What happened?" Isla crossed her arms. "I tried to move my legs this morning and nothing happened. Nothing. I'm tired of trying. It's pointless." Jonathan looked away, jaw tight. "She's been frustrated all weekend." Zeke nodded. He knelt beside her again. "You think I never get tired?" She didn't answer. "You think I didn't sit in a shelter and cry when my mom couldn't afford medicine and I had to just sit there and watch her?" Her eyes shifted toward him. "You're allowed to be mad. I'm mad sometimes too. But if you stop now, the part of you that wants to walk might stop trying too." She stared at the ground. "I don't want you to give up," he said softly. "Because I haven't." Silence. Then Isla whispered, "I'm scared." Jonathan turned. That was the first time she'd said that out loud. Zeke leaned in closer. "I am too. But scared don't mean stop. It just means you're close to something big." Isla wiped her face. "Okay, let's try again." And they did. Zeke guided her through the motions, gently, less talking this time. Just presence, patience. Jonathan stepped in more too, helping her shift weight, encouraging every small twitch. After 30 minutes, Isla moved her right foot, not a toe, her whole foot. It slid forward, slow and stiff, but it moved. Jonathan knelt down beside her, blinking like he wasn't sure he'd seen it right. "Do it again," he said. She did. Zeke smiled but didn't say anything. He just sat back and watched. Later that night, Jonathan stood outside his house on Crestview Drive, staring at the moon. He'd stopped asking himself who Zeke really was. The question didn't matter anymore. Inside, Isla was giggling, retelling the foot slide moment to her aunt on speakerphone. For the first time in 6 months, their house didn't feel like a hospital room. It felt like home again. But something inside Jonathan had started to shift. Not just his daughter's legs, but the weight in his own chest, the guilt, the pride. The wall he'd built between himself and the world. It was cracking. Monday afternoon, Jonathan sat in his office, staring at an untouched contract. His phone buzzed every few minutes, emails, calls, client updates, but none of it felt urgent anymore. What kept looping in his mind was that moment in the park. Isla's foot sliding forward like it belonged to her again. He'd seen it with his own eyes. And the person who made it happen was a 9-year-old with taped-up boots and no last name he'd ever heard before. He opened a new browser tab and typed Ezekiel Carter Birmingham. Nothing came up, except a few scattered results. He clicked through old local newsletters and school databases. A few mentions of Ezek and his mother, Monique Carter, at a community clinic. No address, no recent info. He shut the laptop and leaned back. This kid was a ghost, except he wasn't. By Saturday, they were back at Harrington Park. But things felt different now. Jonathan brought an extra mat and a fold-out chair. He handed Zeke a sandwich when they arrived. Didn't say anything about it, just placed it beside his gym bag. Zeke gave a small thanks and tucked it away for later. Ready, Issa? He asked. She gave a big thumbs up. Let's do it. They got into the routine. Heat packs, stretches, toe flexes. Today, Jonathan joined in fully. He sat cross-legged on the grass, doing each motion Zeke explained. Even messed one up. You're bending the wrong way, Zeke said with a grin. Jonathan gave him a side eye. I haven't stretched since college. They laughed. Even Isla. About 20 minutes in, Zeke leaned forward. All right, Issa. Let's try something different. He unfolded a belt from his bag and placed it under her knees, showing Jonathan how to hold each end. She's going to try to lift both knees now, just a little. We help balance her. She controls the movement. Jonathan blinked. You sure? Zeke nodded. She's ready. They gave her a few seconds. Her brow tightened, eyes narrowed. She grunted softly, and then her knees lifted, slightly, barely an inch, but they lifted. Jonathan looked at her, stunned. You did that? She smiled. I did it. He swallowed hard. You really did it? Zeke nodded slowly, eyes on the belt. See? The body remembers. You just have to be patient enough to let it talk. Jonathan looked at him. You're something else, kid. Zeke didn't respond. He just started gently guiding Isla through the next stretch. After the session, as they packed up, Jonathan crouched beside him. Where do you go after this? Zeke shrugged. Around. Jonathan lowered his voice. You got a place to sleep? Zeke hesitated, then said, Sometimes. Jonathan exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. You ever think about coming to stay with us for a while? Zeke's eyes widened. You serious? I got a guest room. You wouldn't be in the way. Zeke looked down at his hands. You sure your neighbors wouldn't mind a kid like me? Jonathan gave a short laugh. Man, after what you've done for my daughter, they'd better not say a word. Zeke didn't answer right away, but Jonathan could see the wheels turning. The next morning, Zeke stood outside Jonathan's home, backpack slung over one shoulder, a rolled-up blanket tucked under his arm. Jonathan opened the door in sweatpants, coffee mug in hand. Right on time, he said. Isla ran to the front hallway. Zeke! He smiled. Hey, superstar. Jonathan stepped aside. Welcome home. The days that followed were quiet, but meaningful. Zeke got his own room, a soft bed, clean sheets, and a small desk. He didn't say much, but he never missed a morning stretch with Isla. She was moving both feet now. Not walking yet, but the wheels were turning. Her brain was reaching out to her legs like it remembered the connection. One night, as Jonathan cleaned the dishes, he paused and leaned on the counter. Zeke, he said over his shoulder, you ever think about going back to school? Zeke, who was sketching at the kitchen table, glanced up. Sometimes. Jonathan nodded. You're smart. You could go far. Zeke tilted his head. I want to help people walk again. Like my mama did. Jonathan turned to face him. Then let's figure out how to get you there. Zeke gave a small smile. Okay. They didn't say much more that night. They didn't need to. For the first time in years, the Reeves household wasn't full of silence. It was full of small noises that meant life. Footsteps, laughter, scribbles, and healing. It started with a nurse from the Children's Medical Center. She was walking her dog through Harrington Park one Sunday morning and spotted a familiar face, Isla. She hadn't seen her outside her wheelchair in months, let alone smiling, lifting her knees, moving her toes. Standing beside her was the same, quiet kid who used to sit by the hospital doors every weekend. The nurse didn't interrupt, just watched from a distance for a while. Then she went home and told her sister, who happened to work in patient services. A few days later, a physical therapist at the hospital mentioned to Jonathan, Hey, someone told me Isla's improving. That true? Jonathan nodded. Yeah. thanks to someone we weren't expecting. Word spread fast. The next time they showed up to Harrington Park, 2 other families were waiting at the bench near the big oak tree. One had a boy who used a walker, the other, a girl recovering from a stroke. Both parents had heard about the kid who helped the Reeves girl move her legs again. Zeke looked at Jonathan. Jonathan looked right back at him. "You don't have to," he said quietly. Zeke adjusted the strap on his bag. "I want to." He gave up his usual time with Isla that day to work with the 2 new kids. He showed their parents how to use the same towel stretches, how to warm the rice packs just right, how to encourage without pushing too hard. And he talked to the kids, not at them. "You're not broken," he told one of them. "You're just learning a different way to be strong." Isla watched everything from her wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't complain once. Later that afternoon on the drive home, she said, "I like watching him help people." Jonathan glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm part of something good." He smiled. By the next weekend, 5 families showed up. The week after that, it was 11. A local pastor brought folding chairs. A nearby diner started dropping off bagels and coffee. Somebody printed flyers that read, "Free movement classes." Sundays at noon, Harrington Park. They didn't mention Zeke's name, but everyone knew who it was. A local reporter showed up with a camera and a notepad. Jonathan pulled Zeke aside. "You okay with this?" Zeke looked around at the families, at the kids moving their limbs, at Isla laughing with a girl on a walker. He nodded. "As long as it's not about me, it's about them." The reporter wrote her piece. It ran on the second page of the Birmingham Sunday Post under the headline, "9-year-old with a gift helps dozens heal in a city park." They didn't share his full name. Zeke asked them not to. But people found out anyway. A local doctor offered to mentor him. A nonprofit asked if they could fund some equipment. Someone else offered free tutoring. For the first time since his mother passed, people didn't just look at Zeke. They saw him. But Zeke never bragged. He still laid out the towel the same way every Sunday. Still used the same duct-taped boots. Still checked in with Isla first before helping anyone else. Now, the park that once echoed with silence and sore bodies had become a place filled with movement. And a boy who had no home had become the heart of something bigger than himself. It had been 9 Sundays. 9 Sundays of towels laid on grass, of Isla's knees lifting higher, of small victories shared with strangers who'd become something closer to family. But this Sunday was different. Zeke could feel it before they even pulled up to the park. The air was warmer, the trees swayed a little slower. Even Isla was quieter in the back seat, focused like she was preparing for something big. When they arrived, a small crowd had already formed. Nothing loud or flashy. Just families setting up folding chairs, therapists kneeling in front of kids, parents with hopeful eyes. And right in the middle of it all was that same worn-out bench under the oak tree. Zeke didn't say anything at first, just unpacked his bag, rolled out the towel, and gave Isla a look. "You ready?" She nodded. No smile. Just that look again. Serious. Determined. Jonathan wheeled her to the center of the mat. Zeke knelt in front of her. "Same as before," he said softly. "We help you stand. You do the rest." Jonathan moved behind her and placed his hands under her arms. Zeke took her legs, guiding them gently into place. "Okay," Zeke whispered. "On 3. She closed her eyes. 1, 2, 3. Jonathan lifted. Zeke steadied her knees, and then she stood. Her legs trembled. Her arms shook. But she was up, on her own 2 feet. The crowd fell silent. Some kids gasped. One mother clapped a hand over her mouth. Isla opened her eyes slowly and smiled. "I'm standing." Zeke blinked back something in his eyes. Yeah, you are. Jonathan froze for a second like he couldn't breathe. Then he let go. She stayed up. He stepped back, shaking. She's doing it. Zeke stepped back too, just a little. She's been doing it. Isla took one shaky step, then another. And then, because she was 6 and brave and didn't know how to be afraid, she took a third step, all on her own, before falling into her father's arms. He caught her, laughing, crying, his hands trembling as he held her. You did it, he whispered. You really did it. Isla turned to Zeke. You said I would. He gave her a small grin. I said we'd try. That afternoon, nobody left the park in a hurry. People stayed, talked, hugged. Some prayed. Zeke sat back on the bench and watched it all. He didn't say much. He never did. Later that night, Jonathan stood in the kitchen while Zeke poured cereal in a bowl. You know you changed everything, he said. Zeke didn't look up. I did. Jonathan walked over and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. My daughter walked today, and not because of a hospital or a doctor or a miracle drug. She walked because a kid with nothing decided to show up, again and again, even when nobody asked him to. Zeke nodded. That's what my mom would have done. Jonathan's throat tightened. I wish she could have seen this. She did, Zeke said softly. I think she sees everything. Jonathan wiped his eyes. Zeke, he said quietly, you're going to change a lot of lives. Zeke looked up at him. I already am. There are people in this world who might not have fancy degrees, shiny resumes, or a perfect past. But they carry something far more valuable, heart, grit, and a reason to keep showing up. Sometimes the most broken people are the ones holding the tools to help others heal. If this story moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it. And if you know a kid like Zeke or a girl like Isla, tell them this. You matter. You're needed,